Hello everyone, we would like to introduce the Chart Guys' newest course, Essential Candlesticks and the Patterns that they create. This is something that I, 9 years into my trading journey, take for granted. I look at a chart and I can instantly, subconsciously know what the candlestick shapes are telling me, the patterns that they are creating, and the market psychology that's going on behind the scenes to create those candlestick shapes. Obviously, I had to learn this at some point, and it was literally step number 1 of my technical analysis education journey was understanding what these candlestick shapes are telling us. So after going through this 12-hour course, you'll be able to understand why candlesticks are essential for trading success, develop your own ability to observe and react to the market trends and changes, develop an understanding of market psychology and how this phenomenon influences price action, as well as a whole bunch more. I'm going to link this website in the description of this video so you can check out more information for yourself. We've got examples of the modules and we break down exactly how this course is compiled. And essentially what it is a big chunk of book learning. So it's going to break down what these patterns are telling us: 2 candlestick bullish patterns, 3 candlestick bullish patterns, 2 candlestick bearish patterns, so on and so forth. Some live examples of those patterns playing out, and then tying it all together as to how we can use understanding these patterns to benefit our trading. My partner, Chart Guys Jason, goes through the meat of this course, breaking down all these individual patterns. I personally chime in with more abstract psychological topics of discussion, the art of observation, the psychology of a candle, and things of that nature. But we look forward to you checking this course out, and we appreciate your support as always. Have a great rest of your day. Hello MJ friends, we got a bunch of US names to be looking at. We looked at the Canadian names in the video yesterday. We're going to look at GWPH, CURA, GGB, MRMD, GTII, IIPR, OH, CBSI, NBEV, MPX, KSHB, IAN, MedMen, LHS, TRUL. So first things first, this is a website that you should be utilizing in my opinion. It's marijuanaindex.com. You have the breakdown of the US index and the Canadian index, and it's a great way to see who's performing well, what their market caps are. You can rank by market cap. Everybody that I just listed is arranged by a size of market cap. So GWPH with the largest here and TRUL with the smallest, which was surprising to me. I didn't know TRUL's market cap was so small. So this is a website to utilize, and it's oftentimes how I compare. You know, if I want to look at, is the US outperforming Canada, I'll just come on here and say, you know, what's the percentage breakdown, and then I'll compare it to Canada. So check that website out. It's a good one. Another thing to note, we had Citron coming out yesterday saying, hey, we're out of our APHA position. We're shorting Cron, and sophisticated investors are heading to the US marijuana sector. Take that for whatever it's worth. It might not be worth much, but that's something that is in the public's attention for right now. So everybody's looking and waiting for legislation changes in the United States, and everybody knows that it's just a matter of time, whether we get full-on national legalization or whether it's a slow step moving forward, is going to dictate how this plays out, obviously, with these companies. If it's a slow move forward, if we have to get, you know, descheduling as step number 1, and then we get some banking rights as step number 2, and then we get medical nationally as step number 3, and then we get recreational eventually 5 years down the road. That's a very different roadmap of what these stocks are going to do, as opposed to, you know, someone running in 2020 with their platform saying, hey, we're going to legalize nationally, and then them winning. So that's something to be aware of, as opposed to how quickly gains are going to accrue in this sector. We're going to continue seeing, you know, mergers and acquisitions going on, but it's very notable that obviously the Canadian market is way more mature, which is, you know, interesting to say because the Canadian market itself is not mature, but way more mature than the US space in terms of being listed on major exchanges, giving exposure to capital. There's a lot of institutions out there that can't play a lot of these US stocks because they don't meet the minimum criteria. They're traded on the OTC. There's some restrictions on, you know, which institutions can trade OTC names, and also market cap and share price. If the share price is, you know, under $5, it's technically considered a penny stock. That's also fairly limiting. So just be aware that, in my opinion, the risk to reward is higher in the US, as I've said before. And we have the potential of, we haven't seen obviously any major money come into the US market due to the legal hurdles that are still in place. And by, you know, big money, I mean something comparable to Constellation deals with CGC and Altria's deal with Cron. So let's get into the technical analysis aspect of things. GWPH earnings are approaching. This is as V-shaped a recovery as you can see. And the weekly time frame, just a straight V-shaped bounce. So congrats to anybody that bought that dip. On the fear when the market was dumping, we are now up well over 50% from the lows. So very massive bounce. But keeping in mind that the risk to reward heading into earnings at this point favors the bears, just because we have run so hard, we have not consolidated on the weekly, and in order to see, it would have to be a very bullish reaction to earnings in order to keep heading back up towards this all-time high. The most likely scenario is our all-time high, low of the dump, a lower high looking to form in the 140 to 160s, and then we'll look to pull back and form a higher low on the weekly with an equilibrium. When you have that much volatility, the most common scenario after that kind of volatility is an equilibrium and tightening range. So the daily time frame, higher low, maintained at 133. Anything above 133 keeps the daily higher low intact, and we have to lose the daily uptrend to zoom out to the weekly and say that our weekly lower high has been set. So that's not the case at this point. Resistance is 148.40 and 152.28. This has been the big daddy leader in the US space for the whole since existence of the sector, essentially. It's always just been penny stocks and GWPH, and now we have a whole bunch more names filling in here, more legitimate players, but GWPH still big daddy in terms of market cap. And they also have, a lot more business going on than just marijuana plays, but that's certainly their highlight. CURA, big volume spike, beautiful breakout. We saw our high of 823, we consolidated and found support at 730. We broke resistance, didn't get follow through, daily inside bar, convincing bull break, close at the high of the day, huge follow through. So clearing 823 was the bull signal, but it took a couple days to really get that momentum going. And now we're looking at a lack of resistance until the all-time high. So CURA, this is a name that is positioned well to see all-time highs in the first half of 2019. 1149 is key resistance. Again, everything that I say is going to be based on the S&P 500. In my opinion, as I've been saying often, the 5-week bounce that we've seen in the S&P 500 is an ideal environment for the MJ sector to thrive in. If we see changes in that, we know weekly consolidation is coming at some point. The question is going to be, is it just healthy, brief consolidation and then continuation back towards all-time highs in the S&P 500? If that's the case, we're going to see significant amounts of MJ names hitting all-time highs in the first half of 2019. If that's not the case and we pull back significantly and we form a weekly equilibrium, then it's going to take longer to play out. But just be aware that the number one thing we want to be aware of is what the S&P 500 is doing, and obviously making note of whether it's bullish or bearish. And obviously right now it's very bullish. So anything on the daily time frame for CURA above 774 is a higher low, keeping the daily uptrend intact. Checking the weekly time frame here. Again, more likely than not that we're going to form a lower high compared to 1149 and need to consolidate for another higher low. But the lack of resistance right now is very attractive to these bulls. So if we see this volume keep up, if we see over 800,000 shares traded on Monday, we're probably going to make our way up close towards $10. So if that volume keeps coming in, the lack of resistance and the lack of significant price history here is going to really, again, make the bulls thrive. And this was a very clear trend change with lower highs and lower lows. Here's our higher low, holding the all-time low, and the bull break was right here, getting over this high. And that was 710. And obviously at this point, very significant follow through for these bulls, and they are very strong. Hourly higher low to try and keep the bulls in full control is down at 888. Hold 888 on Monday, bulls in the driver's seat. GGB, so a lot of talk here with the potential offer for APHA. A lot of people don't think anything is going to come out of that, and I probably have to agree, but worth keeping an eye on it. And their market cap is a lot bigger than I thought it was. Again, just by going down this list, I'm getting some surprises in terms of who's got bigger market caps than who. So on the weekly time frame, we've already started this clear consolidation, and it's still very healthy. We're coming off the all-time high. We are looking to form a new weekly higher low at 470, but we have to see a daily trend change before we're confident that the weekly higher low has been set. So on the weekly chart, anything under 609 is just a lower high. And what we're going to have to see to change the trend is either break 609, and then we'll look for a higher low and new all-time high, or we're going to top out with the inability to break 609, and we will have to consolidate and form a higher low compared to 470, and then break those lower highs. No major red flags here on this consolidation. Have to be aware that some days we have very, very low volume, where let's see, we're looking at about 1.5 million shares traded. And then some days we'll have pretty high volume where we have $10 million traded. So pretty inconsistent volume, but definitely worth keeping an eye on this name because, again, proximity to all-time highs. Cron has shown us what bulls can do in all-time highs, and everybody knows to pile into these blue sky breakout bulls because they can run long and hard. So CURA and GGB have our attention because of their proximity to these all-time highs, and we'll see if this daily trend change on GGB can take place sometime in the next couple weeks, ideally next week. MRMD, very significant pullback at this point. This is definitely a name to start looking at for a higher low to form because although we pulled back so hard, we still have the daily uptrend intact. Anything above 353 is a higher low. Because of the size of the pullback, when we bounce, we're going to look for a lower high to form, but we need the hourly trend to change for the indication that our daily higher low has been established. Key resistance is 416, multiple tops at these levels. Bulls have to hold 383 on Monday and break 416 in order to change this hourly trend, and then we'll say, all right, our daily higher low has been set, and we're going to look for the bulls to make their way back up over 450, and then look for a lower high to be set somewhere in the mid to upper $4 range. Weekly time frame here. This is going to be a good one to watch because we have the all-time high, the pullback, because we pulled back so significantly, well over 50%, the odds of a lower high compared to the all-time high were likely. Now we're going to look to change this weekly trend. The bounce on the weekly time frame took out a bunch of resistance levels, but to confirm the weekly trend change, we still need the higher low and higher high. And if we get that, we're going to see new all-time highs. So need the weekly new support level to be established. High bear volume here is definitely a little bit concerning. We want to see declining bear volume on the red and increasing bull volume on the green. But looking at the daily time frame, pretty solid block of red volume, especially compared to the green. So that is another factor that I would put into analysis saying, you know, are we likely to set a lower high on the bounce due to the bear volume compared to the bull volume? I would say yes. That increases the odds even more that when we do bounce, a lower high is likely to form. GTII, look at that bull volume. So that's a very convincing indication that our daily higher low has been established. We ran so fast and hard, we didn't establish any daily support on the way up. Had a little double low at 1430, so that would be a support level to use because nothing else is nearby. But look at this nice tightening range with a clear bull break. This is one to watch next week. Support 1460 is our new must-hold level to keep the bulls strong, and we shifted that hourly trend in a big way. So here's just lower highs and lower lows. Then we had a higher low by 16 cents, and breaking 1545 is the bull signal. Short-term support on Monday to keep the bulls in full control is 1567. We've got resistance at 1625, and the next level after that is 1632 and 1660. So a nice shift in momentum. The weekly time frame trying to change the trend. Saw a solid bounce on the weekly, trying to form this little bull flag of a higher low, and we'll see if the bulls are going to be able to make it all the way back over 1824 to confirm the weekly trend change and see follow through. That's, again, very notable bull volume shifting that momentum, and we'll see if the bulls can keep up that momentum into Monday and Tuesday of next week. IIPR all-time highs continue for these bulls. They always close with profit taking, it looks like, with these big upper wicks, but that doesn't stop the bulls the next day from seeing continuation. So upper wicks of profit taking, but every day, new all-time highs. Hourly uptrend intact. So I'm looking at anything above 61.66, keeping the bulls in full control. Again, the dividend is a nice bonus here for any long-term holdings. And on the daily time frame, anything above 58.01 is a daily higher low. So if we lose the hourly uptrend, we zoom out to the daily, and the bulls need to be sure and hold 58.01. Otherwise, we zoom out to the weekly, and we look for weekly consolidation to form a higher low. Resistance is going to be 65.30, 66, 67 psychological levels. Another name that has just thrived on the S&P 500 shift in sentiment and 5-week bounce. OH, weekly time frame here, looking for a lower high to likely be set. Again, when you see this kind of V-shaped recovery, huge gains. We're almost at 100% gain in the last 6 weeks, but the odds that we're going to be able to break $11 without seeing weekly consolidation is less likely. So we're watching for an equilibrium to potentially form here as well. And if we lose the daily uptrend, that's the indication to zoom out to the weekly and look for weekly consolidation. Key support is 887 Anything above that keeps the bulls in full control. We've got resistance at 981 and 10 psychological to be watching from here. So bulls still strong, but if we lose the daily uptrend, we zoom out to the weekly and we'll look for a weekly higher low. And this is just a really nice, clear pattern at this point. And I would like to see it continue to tighten up into February, March, and get a clear break in early spring. CBSI starting to consolidate. If we see a break of 538, then we know daily consolidation is clearly underway. And the bulls will be looking to hold 484 from there. Looking at it on the weekly time frame, we change the weekly trend with a clear bull break of this equilibrium, and anything on the weekly above 405 keeps the bulls in control. So no red flags at this point. The daily chart certainly extended over the last couple of weeks, so just looking for a healthy higher low. Declining bear volume is what the bulls want to see continue going forward, and that would mean no red flags if we continue to consolidate on low bear volume, and 484, that level to maintain the higher low. Resistance is 570 and 6 psychological from there. NBEV on the daily time frame, a little bit choppy. Upper wicks of profit taking 3 days in a row. Haven't been able to keep those gains, but we just lost the hourly uptrend. So see these clear higher lows, and these are marked by pivots. I would go to indicators, and you go to pivots, and you do pivots high low, and you change the settings from 10 to 5, and that's how you get these numbers to show up. But we can see a clear loss of 704 support is starting to shift this hourly momentum. So we zoom out to the daily, and we might be in for some daily consolidation. The last higher low was 595. So this is the setup where we have our high of 762, our low of 595, and right now it's a lower high of 745. And if we lose this hourly uptrend more convincingly and break 7 psychological on Monday, then we're going to say, all right, it's very clear that 745 is our new lower high. And now we're going to look to pull back and form a daily higher low compared to 595 and form this equilibrium. So if the bears punch through that $7 level on Monday, daily equilibrium is on watch. MPX, not many more trading days left on MPX as this deal is set to go through. I believe we get MPXI, the spinoff, to begin trading on Monday, but those who are waiting for dividend shares from their MPX position are not going to get those settled in their brokers for at least a couple of days, and maybe even up to a week plus. So just be aware that even if MPXI does begin trading, people are not going to be able to sell their shares. So I assume it's going to be only one-sided buying. I would expect to see some strength first thing. All depends on, maybe some people, maybe insiders have shares settled that they could sell. I don't know. I don't have those details. But it seems like the setup is if it does begin trading on Monday, it might be one-sided with only demand for shares and no supply because those shares are not free trading yet. So that's something to keep an eye on. MPX, I believe sometime next week will stop trading and will just be combined with IAN. But MPX, I'm going to put IAN next, but KSHB does have higher market cap than IAN. So MPX still strong for these bulls. We did get to higher highs on Friday. Support, bulls want to hold 113 to keep the uptrend intact. We've got resistance at 119, and then the all-time high is up at 127. So probably going to stop trading before we get to that all-time high. And we'll just look at IAN. IAN, very similar chart. Daily bull flag confirmed with solid volume on Friday. A little bit of profit taking at the end of the day. Could start to see that shift. I was watching MPX and IAN trade and started to see the shift Friday when we saw consolidation in CGC and some of these other names pull back as well. So anything on the hourly above 664 keeps the uptrend intact. On the daily, that is on the hourly time frame. Anything above 653 keeps the daily uptrend intact. And as far as resistance goes, it's 714, and then we're looking up at 727 and 792. And as far as the weekly chart goes here, again, very solid bounce breaking resistances, but to confirm the weekly trend change, we do need a higher low and higher high. KSHB, this is unusual trading. And this is something that I would call not organic trading, not local free range, non-GMO trading. What I mean by that is just it's very unusual to see this kind of volatility, 437 to 720, and then this huge dump to 499, and then sideways trading. Again, this kind of volatility is when you get the equilibrium scenario. And this tells me that we're probably seeing some further selling pressure to keep from this bounce getting meaningful. Again, just straight across for almost 2 weeks after that volatility is unusual. So that definitely stands out to me. As far as, what's going on, it's only speculation. I have no idea what's going on. But like I said, I would suggest that there is some additional selling pressure going on to keep things contained in this range and not allow for a more significant bounce. But the range to be watching right now, in my opinion, is 540 support and 562 resistance. And you can see, literally, we've got over 2 weeks of trading, pretty much 2 weeks on the dot, straight within this range. So we're looking for a close above 562 or a close below 540 to indicate a clear break of this range, and certainly expecting that this coming week. And looking at KSHB on the weekly, pretty ugly pullback, and that was due to news of dilution. You can see the bear volume associated with it. We are on our way looking up towards all-time highs, and that news took a big hit. And that's something you have to be aware of with these U.S. names. They are more subject to dilution news, in my opinion, because of the lack of any funding with banks, the lack of, significant investors giving cash influxes to these companies. In my opinion, they have a more difficult market environment to deal with than Canada does right now. So potential that they have a higher probability of needing to do these bot deals. MedMen, daily time frame support is 401. Again, more significant pullback than the bulls would like to see here. 506, and we've already pulled back very significantly. Volume looked great on the way up, and then we start to see huge volume in terms of this pullback. And again, the volume climax signaling the temporary top because you have the absolute most amount of volume. You have the bulls trying to say, hey, we're breaking out, let's keep going. And then you have profit taking, and then you have bears jumping in saying, nah, we're ready to pull back. And all of that volume all happening on the same day is what gives you this climax. So we're looking for a higher low compared to 401, but the size of this pullback at this point is a bit concerning to the bulls. Weekly time frame doesn't look anything like a lot of these other names. So just technically speaking, specifically, I would be more cautious and less bullish on this name than I would be on a lot of the other ones that we just looked at, just because of how minimal this weekly bounce has been at this point compared to the size of the dump from the all-time high. Again, we want proximity to the all-time highs, and we are nowhere near it here. We need well over 100% to get back to those levels. LHS, this is one we've been watching for a tightening range, and it's still tightening, so still worth watching. 72 is our low. Our high is 113. 81's a higher low. Double top, 114 we'll call it. 88's a higher low, and we're looking at resistance of 108. A break of 108 is an early bull signal. A break of 114 is the bull signal, and we have to keep these higher lows. So just getting really tight, you look on the weekly time frame, and we've got our low, high of the bounce, higher low, and we're trying to confirm the trend change if we can get over 114. And here's another name that's way below its all-time high. Certainly worth noting, but tight daily range, worth keeping an eye on for a break sometime in the next 2 weeks. And last, we'll wrap it up here with TRUL. Nice solid follow through on the bull break. This is one of those times where, I don't remember if I've said this, but I probably said that the most likely scenario on this size of a pullback is a lower high. And obviously, the most likely scenario doesn't always play out. If it did, we wouldn't be taking losses as traders. But this is a scenario where the bulls certainly did see enough follow through to break through 1483. Some potential early clues are the 2 green days of volume down here, clearly standing out as a solid chunk of volume, shifting that momentum. We had the double bottom at 1215 and 1217, bull break, and it's been nothing but follow through. The hourly trend change was the indication of this daily higher low, and that hourly uptrend has been intact ever since. Anything on the hourly above 1471 is a higher low. If we lose the hourly uptrend, we zoom out to the daily and we look for a daily higher low to form. But this is a very solid follow-through move for TRUL, as we saw sideways consolidation on the weekly before continuation. And again, very low market cap for TRUL. They have, as far as my understanding of the fundamentals, which I haven't done very in-depth research, but they've got a pretty good stronghold on Florida as a market. Florida has a huge population, but if we're going to be a major player here, we definitely need to expand to other states, and I believe that is in the game plan. They might have already started in a couple states, but need to expand more than that. And we also have other players going into Florida, so perhaps that monopoly that they have on that market is dwindling a little bit. But either way, worth keeping an eye out, especially because this market cap is so small. It's pretty much, I mean, some of these market caps are, I think CURA is maybe 5 times the market cap of TRUL. and we have a nice solid daily uptrend to be watching. So that's what we're looking at in the US side of things. Again, I don't believe we're going to see a scenario where Canada is red and the US is green. That happens, for a day at a time. But in terms of a consistent trend for a week or two or a month or 2 months, I don't think that's going to happen. I think the marijuana sector is a unit. And while we can have these little fluctuations short term between these different geographical locations, I don't think that it's going to be a scenario where, if you're holding Canadian MJ, you're going to have a red month. And if you're holding US MJ, you're going to have a green month. I do believe that the gains will be more significant in the US names, obviously on any kind of law changes or movement forward on the movement in the United States. But I do believe that the Canadian names will benefit from that as well, obviously. And we saw what CGC did when they put out news that they were getting into the industrial hemp space in New York. And any law changes, the market is going to assume CGC is going to move in a big way to the US market once those floodgates open. So I do anticipate Canadian names will benefit from positive US news, but because we're more thinly traded in the US tickers and because they haven't had, major institutions get involved yet, I do believe that the percentage gains will be more significant on the US names if we do get these changes. So we have a lot of people saying, darn, I missed buying this dip on Canadian MJ and it's been doing nothing but going up. Number one, don't beat yourself up on anomalies. This is the most significant shift in market sentiment that I've ever seen in 8 years. So when we have a 1 in 8 year anomaly, I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, I should have done this, because no, it's happened one time in 8 years. It's not common. And to be able to react to that would be awesome. And if you did, congrats, but you don't beat up on yourself for something very unusual to happen. So a lot of people are bummed that they missed this bounce, as that's understandable. But just be aware that this US market has not even started, in my opinion, in terms of what we're going to see 5 to 10 years down the road. So again, as I've been saying for years at this point, accrue capital, do odd jobs, Uber, do yard work, do things to accrue capital, because we are going to see floodgates open and blue sky breakouts all over the place in the USMJ market at a certain point in time. Whether that's in 6 months or 3 years, I don't know, but I know it's going to happen, and I'm going to be ready to pounce all over that. And again, back 5 years ago, I was multiple years into my trading career. I was doing yard work for friends. I was, flipping paintings on eBay and doing everything that I could to just continually add money to my stock account and then compound that profit. So that's a game plan to establish. I hope you do good things. I hope you have a good weekend. And we'll see you Monday. We'll see if these bulls can keep up this market momentum. 26-minute video, that's a record.